At least 20 Indian soldiers are dead after a violent clash with Chinese forces in the Himalayas. The deaths occurred in the region of Ladakh, where India and China share a disputed border. The incident marks the most serious conflict between the neighboring countries in decades. China's Foreign Affairs Ministry claims the soldiers illegally crossed the border twice. Senior military officers from both countries are now meeting to try and diffuse the tension. Let's go to Rita Tremblay on this, political science professor at the University of Victoria. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Mirella.
When was the last time we saw any serious interaction, skirmishes at this border spot?
We've had on and off skirmishes, and I think the big serious one which took place was in 2017, but on the other side of the border, where India and Bhutan actually, in that particular region, more to the northwest. And but it's only after 45 years that we are seeing very serious skirmishes on this side. And it was only in probably 1975 you had about 40 or so fatalities. So this is a kind of aberration in terms of kind of a disputed territory, skirmishes, but no really fatalities.
So my understanding was that there wasn't even any gunfire exchange. This was a fist fight and rock throwing fight.
Yes, that's what my understanding is.
So a pretty brutal way for them to get involved. And what triggered it? Was it actually India, the soldiers crossing over into China, or was there something even before that that may have triggered this back and forth?
About a month ago, Indian television reported that China was building a new airport runway around this particular area and building some sort of military installations. So these military installations were shown on Indian television throughout. After that, India started building up, started constructing roads and bringing more army, and China, meanwhile, also responded back. So for about 3 or 4 weeks now, we are seeing both sides building up, bringing additional troops, and as well as bringing more armament. So it's past month or so, I would say that there's been a huge buildup.
So did China have any casualties in this fight?
I hear that there are some casualties, but there's been no confirmation. So most of the confirmation has come from the Indian side. First, that there were 3 casualties, and now, today, about 20 more.
Do you imagine that this will stay calm? It doesn't sound like either country really wants to get into it at this time with so much else going on.
Yeah, you can see that there's a high potential for escalation because, fatalities always are a really problematic in terms of generating a further confrontation. But I would say there are low prospects for escalation. So actually, both sides are going to try to de-escalate the situation. This has been going on since 1962, when India and China went to war for the first time, and China occupied part of the Indian territory in this particular region, Aksai Chin. And since then, there have been skirmishes, there have been disputes, but since 1970s, both sides have tried to agree to disagree. Both sides claim that some of the territory belongs to them, but both have really worked very hard to engage in a dialogue.
Is there anything, sorry to interrupt you, but is there anything significant to the region that they're fighting about?
Yes. I would say the reason for China is basically that China really considers it a disputed territory, and it goes back to the British days. But so far as India is concerned, India, is really concerned about China becoming very tight with Pakistan. China is building what they call a corridor in terms of its Belt Road Initiative. It's called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And that corridor connects China with the Indian Ocean. And it goes through the territory which India claims to be part of its own territory, part of Jammu and Kashmir. So it's a kind of complex geopolitical issue. And so I think both sides have a claim. Both want it for geopolitical reasons and also for their domestic constituencies.
Got it. Rita Tremblay, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Appreciate your insight on this.
Thank you.
A dramatic increase